Etsy tags. What are they? How do they work? And most importantly, how do you properly write your Etsy tags to maximize your visibility, searchability, and ultimately sales on the Etsy search engine? Well, you're in luck because that's exactly what we're going to be covering in today's video, step by step. And Etsy tags are one of the most important aspects of your Etsy listing, especially when it comes to SEO and ranking. And it's one of the areas that I see the majority of Etsy sellers messing up. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Sumner, Hobart. My wife and I have generated over $1 million in sales of our own products across Amazon, Walmart, and Etsy. And each week we share simple, little known, easy to implement tips to grow your e-commerce and Etsy business. So if you're interested, be sure to hit that little subscribe button on your screen, sit back, relax, and let's get to the tutorial. All right, so first things first, when you create a new listing on Etsy or you're editing your existing listing, when you scroll down in your shop manager, you'll find a section below the description that says tags. And as you see, we have a total of 13 tags that we can use. So we basically type in, so we can just say tag 1 for now, and I'll show you real examples here in a second. There's your first, we have 12 left, and so on. So 13 tags we have to use, and you wanna make sure you maximize all of them. And then number 2 is, for each tag, you have a maximum of 20 characters. So it can't exceed 20 characters, but what you wanna do is for each tag, maximize, get as close to 20 characters as possible in general for each tag, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So use all 20 characters for each tag, or as much as you can, and then utilize all 13 tags. If you're not doing either one of these things with your current Etsy products, that's a huge win right there. That's already gonna help you increase your SEO. Now, obviously, these tags are only visible to Etsy. So the other elements of your listing, like your description, your title, your images, all of that, that's visible to the shopper and can influence your Etsy SEO. This, you're basically helping Etsy's algorithm and their robots understand what your product is, what your listing is about. Okay, so the purpose here is to help the algorithm understand what you're selling, and we're gonna do so in a very strategic way. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of tags. If you're watching this video, you probably already know a little bit about it, but that's kind of the overview. So let's go ahead and actually create some Etsy tags for a real listing. So, all right. In this example, I'm gonna be using this Etsy bookkeeping product that we actually listed on Etsy. So it's an Etsy product for Etsy sellers being sold on Etsy. So it's very Etsy related. That's why I picked this example. So step 1 of creating your tags is you wanna create what's called a master keyword list. Essentially, you wanna find all of the keywords that your potential customers are searching for on Etsy, all right? Every single keyword that they're looking for. So the more keywords that you can find that your future customers are searching for, and you have a list of all those keywords, then the more keywords you can show up for, and then the more sales you're gonna make. More keywords in your listing equals more visibility, right? More views, more clicks, more visits equals more sales, even if the conversion rate's the same. So it's super, super critical. And you can kind of think about your master keyword list, which is exactly what you see right here in these first 2 columns, as water, right? So drinking water is really important. What about drinking dirty water, right? You want to avoid that. The same thing with your keyword list. So think about data like water. So you could either have dirty data, either inaccurate or just very limited data, or very limited keyword set, and that's going to directly impact your entire listing's performance. Literally, your master keyword list can make or break your success on Etsy, or at the very least, have a huge impact on ranking. So creating your master keyword list, don't just choose an Etsy keyword research tool, use it, and then, optimize that way. Make sure that you're maximizing, you find all the keywords that your customers are searching for, and you're using an accurate tool. So I already have a full video on this on the channel, so I won't go through it again. I'll be linking that in the description section below. And I prefer to use Key Search, which is a Google keyword research tool, and I actually use that to optimize my Etsy listings. I talk about all the reasons why, which actually helps me rank both on Google and on Etsy, because Key Search basically will find all the same keywords that tools like eRank or Marmalade will find, plus a bunch of other ones that these tools can't pick up because they're so focused on Etsy sales data and kind of extracting Etsy data, where Google can find a lot more keyword opportunities. And you can use it for product research to find keywords that customers are searching for on Google that have 0 options on Etsy, and help you really efficiently rank both on Google and Etsy. Anyway, without going into detail, whatever keyword research tool that you're using, make sure that you're maximizing that tool, that you're finding as many keywords that are relevant to your product as possible, and then consolidate them into one list, and you'll just call that list your master keyword list. So here we have our master keyword list. As you can see, it's a fairly short list, only about 31 keywords here. and it's going to vary depending on the product. Next thing you want to do once you have your master keyword list is organize that list by search volume. It doesn't matter if it's Google search volume, Etsy search volume, just choose kind of one of those platforms and then organize in descending order from highest down to lowest. So here we go. Start with a search volume about 90 all the way down to 10, okay? The next thing we're going to do is once we've organized, that's the key, is we're going to copy all these keywords. So Command C to copy. And then we're going to use a remove duplicate tool. I like this one. It's called Remove Duplicates by Trace My IP. I'll also be linking this in the description section as well. And by the way, a lot of these tools that we're using are free tools. Okay, so this is a free tool. Command V to paste. Now we have everything from our master keyword list in order. And then what you want to do is click on original order here. And all this does is removes duplicate words, okay? Because the goal here with our tags, and this is similar with our title, is we want as many individual words in our Etsy listing as possible through our title, our tags, our alt text, our description, all of that. And especially for the tags, we want as many individual words in there as possible, okay? So we're just gonna kind of leave this as is. You can copy this to a Word doc or Google Docs, but I'm just gonna kind of keep it here and show you how I use that. And the next tool that we wanna have open is called lettercount.com. Remember, each tag, you can only have a maximum of 20 characters. So we wanna make sure that, as we're kind of creating our tag list before we kind of import that into Etsy, we wanna make sure that each tag is 20 characters or less, otherwise we're gonna have issues, right? Etsy won't accept the tag. So, all right, first thing we're gonna do is go back to the remove duplicate tool. Now, what we wanna do is kind of start looking at the first word here. So like bookkeeping, okay? That's the first word. Don't look at any phrase, just look at the first word in order. So bookkeeping is the first word. So we wanna find what is the keyword with the highest search volume that contains the word bookkeeping. So we start here at the top and we just go down until we find the word bookkeeping in the phrase. So obviously right here at the top, we have bookkeeping for Etsy. If this fits, this is gonna be our first tag, okay? So it contains the word bookkeeping. So we wanna use that, so Command C. We're gonna go down here to see if this is 20 characters and count characters, perfect, it's 20 characters. Reset, awesome, that's perfect. So we're just gonna copy this, boom. This is gonna become our first tag. We go back here and you can go ahead, since we've used now bookkeeping for an Etsy, these are already gone. So now we're gonna move to accounting, okay? So we're gonna do the same process. Go back to our keyword list, scroll down until we find the word accounting, right? We want the highest search volume phrase that contains that word, all right? And you'll see how this plays out here in a second, so just kind of bear with me. So go down here, right? Bookkeeping for Etsy, no accounting, no accounting. There we go, accounting software for Etsy. Now that's gonna be a little bit long and I'll show you. So Command C, we're gonna go to letter count, count the characters, 28, okay? So in these cases, what I like to do is kind of break this up a little bit. So we have accounting software for Etsy, that's too long. So we need to kind of break it up. So the product is specifically a bookkeeping tool for Etsy sellers. So what some sellers would do is like, okay, I need to break this up. Let me, have accounting software and then for Etsy, for example. No, because accounting software, that can be for anything. So you wanna make sure it's specific for Etsy. So what I would do is accounting software for Etsy. I would make one, so accounting for Etsy, because it contains that word. So basically it contains as much of the phrase as possible. We had to get rid of some, which is unfortunate, but we need to keep it in 20 characters. So this is the next best option. So we just got rid of the word software, okay? So accounting for Etsy, that's what we want for this tool. Now, if this was a general bookkeeping tool, then we would just have, accounting software, for example, and then maybe like accounting for Etsy. But since this is specifically for Etsy sellers, if we have, software for Etsy, that doesn't make sense. Give me any kind of software. We want it to be specific. So we use that word accounting, remember from here, and it's for Etsy. So we're gonna go back here into tags, accounting for Etsy, okay? Because each of these tags, Etsy is gonna kind of look at, it's gonna help them understand. So you're being really specific with each tag. They're like, okay, bookkeeping for Etsy, accounting for Etsy, right? Accounting spreadsheet for Etsy, et cetera, right? Just kind of going through, giving them a really clear picture of what your listing is and what the product is that you're selling. And keep in mind that Etsy pulls your data from your tags and actually uses that in advertising. So the more specific your tags are, the better your advertising can actually perform. And another note is some sellers, what they'll do is they'll basically do this, right? They'll look at, bookkeeping for Etsy, then they'll do like accounting software expense, right? Let's just say this, they'll do this accounting software expense. Let's just say, since they already use that, then they'll do tracker profit margin. So they'll do this tracker profit margin. and just move through and just kind of move one by one and never repeat any words again. And the reason that I found that doesn't work well is because basically they're just trying to cram as many words in each tag, even if they don't make sense. Now, if Etsy wanted to see that, I believe that they would just have one section, right? Instead of having 13 individual tags, they would just merge all 13 tags into like one big tag to where you have like a lot of room just to write, let's say 250 characters worth of keywords. So I recommend against this, what I just showed you here, in case you've seen that before. That's why I wanted to bring it out. And definitely recommend against using single keywords. A lot of Etsy sellers fall in that mistake. They use one keyword per tag. You want to be as specific with each tag and maximize that. The more keywords, the more sales that you make while being kind of specific. Okay, so moving on, just kind of makes more sense as we go. So bookkeeping for Etsy, we've done. Accounting and software we have. Now we need expense. That's the next word that we're looking for. So let's Command F, expense. That's how I like to do it. Expense, Etsy expense tracker. Great keyword, okay? Because there's no expense in this phrase, this phrase, this phrase. This is the first one with the high search volume. So we want to use this one ideally, which I think we can. And even if I already know, I want to just make sure that I check. Perfect. Right at 20, that's our maximum limit. So we're good. Etsy expense tracker, fantastic. And then we kind of move on, all right? So expense, we've already used tracker. Now we have profit. That's our next word. So look down here, Command F, profit. So Etsy profit and loss spreadsheet. Obviously that's very long. You can see that it's over 20 characters. I can just show you here in case you don't believe me. There we go, it's way over. So we need to kind of break this up, right? We kind of want to include this, but we need to kind of strategically break this up as best as we can. And there's no exact process to this. You're just trying to take like a longer kind of tag that doesn't fit and break it into 2 tags or even just 1 tag to make it fit. So Etsy profit and loss spreadsheet. So what we could do is potentially it could be Etsy profit spreadsheet, because that makes sense. Our tool is an Etsy profit spreadsheet. So let's see if that fits. Still doesn't fit. So let's see, Etsy profit and loss spreadsheet. What I would do is Etsy profit sheet. There we go. 17. So it's not 20, but that's fine. It's pretty close. So Etsy profit sheet is the best next option. So I would go here and Etsy profit sheet is what I would input there. So we've used now the word profit. Then we move to sales. So we go back here, Command F, sales. All right, Etsy sales tracker. That should fit, but just to make sure, put it into our letter count, 18 characters, perfect. Just paste as is, Etsy sales tracker. So even though we have expense tracker and sales tracker, right, and that's kind of some overlap, each phrase is unique. So there is going to be a little bit of overlap within each tag, but you're really trying to focus. Each tag will have at least one unique keyword within that tag. All right, move on to the next. So we have sales, seller. So Command F, seller, Etsy seller Excel template. Okay, so this will be a little bit long. Let's go here. Count characters, 26. So in this case, what I would do, we want to have the word Etsy in there because that's specifically for our product, right? It's only for Etsy sellers and nobody else. So we have Etsy seller Excel. So what I would do is Etsy seller Excel, that would work. And then Etsy Excel template. So basically when there's a phrase that's longer than 20 characters, I'll either kind of break it up into 1 tag or break it up into 2 tags, depending on what the phrase is. In this case, I want to get both in there because I want to rank for Etsy Excel template and Etsy seller Excel, right? Because different kind of keywords that people type in Excel spreadsheet, Excel template, Excel tool for Etsy sellers. The word Excel with Etsy seller will help me rank for all of those phrases. So I've broken this into 2 and we already know this one works. Let me just quickly check this. Should work. Yep, 19, perfect. So both of these work. So I'm going to go back, Command V to paste, Etsy seller Excel, and then Etsy Excel template. Okay, so yeah, there we go. Then we move on to the next. Seller Excel template. We have sellers. So it is a good idea to make sure that you both have singular and plurals in your listing. If you've already used a singular in your title, then be sure to use a plural somewhere in your tags, or vice versa. If you have a plural in your title, make sure you use a singular in your tags to make sure that you're really giving ranking juice for both. Etsy says that they understand singulars and plurals and their algorithm kind of works that out. But same thing with Amazon, I found that it's better to kind of include plural and singular form of important keywords within your listing, especially tags and titles, but especially with description and alt text, you can easily kind of fit that in throughout your listing. So sellers, we want to go ahead and look at that. So sellers. For bookkeeping for Etsy sellers, we already have bookkeeping for Etsy, right? And we know that this is 20 characters. So we know that bookkeeping for Etsy sellers is going to be way over 20. So let's see. Yeah, 28 characters. So we already have bookkeeping for Etsy, right? So what we're really trying to get is this word sellers. So what is a phrase that we could kind of rearrange that contains the word sellers, but it makes sense, right? So in my view, it would be like Etsy sellers bookkeeping, right? Because sellers bookkeeping doesn't make any sense, or bookkeeping for sellers doesn't make sense. It needs to have Etsy sellers in it. But even here, it's still too long. So I don't really see a way to kind of break this down even into two. It doesn't really make sense given that we've already kind of used it. So this is sort of, in my view, kind of a waste of a tag. Well, number one, because we can't create a tag, it would have to really kind of reduce it down. And we already have the word bookkeeping for Etsy, right? So bookkeeping for Etsy seller, for Etsy sellers, we're gonna rank for because we already have that. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and just ignore it for now and see if I can incorporate the word sellers later. But right now, I'm not really seeing a creative way to include the word sellers, but we do have the word Etsy seller and bookkeeping for Etsy. So we will be able to rank for bookkeeping for Etsy sellers because of those two tags merged together, if that makes sense. Because what Etsy will do is they'll look at each individual word in your tags, as well as the tag as a whole and all the other tags. So it's kind of slicing and dicing the data and kind of compartmentalizing everything together, right? And making connections. So because of that, that's why I'm going to kind of ignore the word sellers here, okay? And that's kind of my reasoning for why, and that's how you'll do. It's kind of a chronological order, and that's why we kind of go in this order. Next, we have Spreadsheet, which I don't believe we've used yet. So Spreadsheet. So we have Etsy Spreadsheet template. That's 20 characters. That would be perfect. If each of these was 20 characters, that would be ideal. So it's 25. So what I would have is Etsy Spreadsheet, because that's the main word that we want to have. So I would just have Etsy Spreadsheet, which should definitely fit. Okay, we're good. So Etsy Spreadsheet. And we have Etsy Excel template already. I might include the word Etsy template, right? Because Etsy Spreadsheet template. But Etsy templates could be, if someone searched that on Etsy, they're looking for different design templates, not necessarily for bookkeeping. So Etsy Spreadsheet though, Spreadsheet kind of indicates more calculations and formulas. So that's why I'm kind of including it. So I'll leave out template for now. There may be another keyword that includes the word template. Well, we already have one, Etsy Excel template. So because of that, there's already a word template there. Making it its own tag wouldn't really make as much sense. I'm going to ignore, instead of breaking that phrase into two, I'm breaking it into one, if that makes sense. I'm turning Etsy Spreadsheet template into Etsy Spreadsheet. All right. Remember, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost done. We're getting close. We have Excel template, seller spreadsheet. We have GoDaddy. Okay, GoDaddy and Wave, both of these services showed up in our keyword research because a lot of sellers are actually looking and searching for these keywords, right? So remember, when you're ranking, keep in mind that you don't just want to rank on Etsy. You also want to influence your ranking on Google as well. Not just with your tags, but also with your title. Next, after Spreadsheet, we have the word GoDaddy, and you also see Wave. Both of these are competitors of my product. We have GoDaddy Accounting and Wave Accounting. So make sure if you ever see a branded term or a trademark term in your master keyword list, read Etsy's terms of service. Like, are you even allowed to use this in your listing, right? So that's up to you to kind of decide. And if it's not with Etsy's terms of service, then you decide whether you want to move forward. I personally like to use branded terms that show up in my keyword report for my tags, because essentially I could be able, if I put GoDaddy and Wave into my backend, to actually appear when Etsy sellers search for those keywords, right? Where I can't have them in my title. If I have the word GoDaddy or Wave in my title, that's misleading. Literally, people would think, oh, it's a GoDaddy product, or if it's a Wave product. It's not, right? So because I can't include it in my title, number one, I can of course include it in my description, which doesn't have as much keyword weight, but I also want to make sure that it's in my tags, right? In the back end, because Etsy is reading this, not my customer. So I personally like to do this, but of course, read Etsy's terms of service for yourself and decide kind of what you want to do. And that's why I brought out this example. But in this case, right, we're going to go back to our keyword list. We have GoDaddy and Wave right next to each other. So let's do one by one. GoDaddy. So GoDaddy, Bookkeeping, Etsy. That looks like it's going to be a little bit long. GoDaddy, Bookkeeping, Etsy is 24. So the key here is we want GoDaddy, right? And most people are searching for GoDaddy Bookkeeping, not GoDaddy Etsy, right? But GoDaddy Bookkeeping. That makes more sense if someone would actually search for this, right? 19, so that's what we're going to use. We just kind of trimmed it down a little bit from Etsy, got rid of that word. Go ahead and add it in here. Perfect. Next, we have Wave, which as you can see is right here. Wave Accounting Etsy. We're going to check. Perfect. It's exactly 20. So we're going to go ahead and include that here in our tags. All right, wave accounting Etsy. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Almost there, right? So wave. Next we have shop. So we want to Command F, shop. Bookkeeping for Etsy shop, 25 characters. So I'm going to try to get rid of the word for. See if that helps. Still 21. So bookkeeping, and what I would do in this case, because I got rid of for, I would just move it around. So Etsy shop bookkeeping. So I want to include the shop in there, but just having like Etsy shop or shop bookkeeping doesn't really make as much sense. I want to kind of have all together. So what I would do is instead of bookkeeping with the word accounting, because I know that's kind of a top word, work well. Still a little bit too long. So I'd look back in my list to try to find another word that could replace bookkeeping that could make sense. So we have bookkeeping, accounting, expense, sales tracker, template, spreadsheet. So Etsy shop, spreadsheet could work. Still a little bit too long. And what I might do is just have the word profit, because that makes the most sense, like a tool for Etsy shop profit. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Again, trying to maximize those tags. And it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system. And sometimes you don't really know what to do. You just kind of have to think, what would someone type into Etsy specifically that relates to this and contains that main keyword, which is shop. So each of these has that different word in it. All right, then from shop, we have tools. So tools, Etsy accounting tools. Go ahead and move a little bit faster here to finish up. 21. So in this case, I'm going to get rid of the word because it's just one character more. I'm going to keep everything except for the S. That's the best case in this scenario because Etsy should pick up on the, plural and singular. It's not always perfect though. It's good to kind of have both somewhere, but I'll make sure that either my title or in my description, that'll also have the word plural tools. So I'm going to have and copy this. All right, so we have tools. Next, we have UK. Etsy accounting UK. Make sure that these are, of course, relevant before you start creating your tags. In this case, yes, this tool does work with the UK market. So, okay, we want to make sure 18. Go ahead and put that in there because it's less than 20. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. One more. So as you see, we may not be able to get everything in there. Our next is profit. So we're going to go here, profit. So Etsy profit and loss spreadsheet. Oh, and that's a long one too. So let's see. Etsy profit and loss. So here, right, the key that we want is profit. And as we can see, this phrase is a bit long. It's about 32 characters. So in this case, I kind of think about it like, okay, so we're looking to try to get profit and loss into our tags. And as you see this, we've already used the word spreadsheet in our tags. So what I would do in this case is get rid of the word spreadsheet because we've already used it because our priority is trying to get profit and loss. But profit and loss on their own, like if I had the option of Etsy profit and loss or profit and loss spreadsheet, again, my target audience are Etsy sellers. So I want to make sure the word Etsy is in there to where it makes sense. So I count the characters, perfect. In some cases, when I have the word and, so like profit and loss or whatever else it might be, in some cases for the word and, I'll replace it with the symbol for and, the ampersand, and to save some space in certain cases. But in this case, I don't need to. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this as is, go back, paste, and there we go. We now have 13 tags. We know that each tag is 20 characters or less. So once this step is done here, all we need to do is copy and paste this into our new Etsy listing, or if we're redoing this for our existing listing. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Number one, going to go ahead and Command V to paste. I hit add, hit number two, hit paste, hit add, go to number three, paste, hit add, and so on until all of them are completed. And once you've entered in all 13 tags, you're good to go. Keep in mind, you won't be able to use all of the keywords from your list here in your tags, but the goal is to get as many individual keywords in, as well as each tag, making sense to the algorithm, which we've done a really great job of here. And using this process is going to give you the maximum visibility and reach for your Etsy listing and ultimately generating as much profit as possible. So hope you found this valuable. And if you did, be sure to check out our full Etsy playlist linked right here on the screen, where I literally walk you through the number one keyword research to use for Etsy that 99% of Etsy sellers don't know, how to use that to create a master keyword list, exact formulas and templates for your titles, your tags, and a free step-by-step Etsy description, and a lot more. So be sure to check that out and consider hitting that subscribe button for more. And as always, thanks so much for watching. God bless you and your business. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.